Hi friends, my name is Host Eric. I'm the host of Talking with Famous People and Typologist Extraordinaire. And I've got today for you a very important and special video called Maybe We Should Try to Kind of Think of Types Like This. Each type is a configuration designed to do something. Now, when people ask me about this 8-function thing, is it a metaphor? Is it not a metaphor? The answer is it's a metaphor because you basically have two relationships. One relationship between regarding matters of intuition and sensing, and one relationship regarding matters, or one configuration regarding matters of deliberation and interface, or your judging functions, right? So the thing is, to understand a type correctly, then, is to say, yes, there are exactly 16 shapes, so to say, but when we try to break it down into 8 functions exactly, the fact is that particularist elements are going to somewhat impact how those functions test in isolation because they don't really exist in isolation. It's like a 4-sided triangle dice, right? If the front of it shows any, then the back of it, or one side that I can't see, I guess that would be, SE would be on the bottom. I can't see it at all. NI would be over here. I can only see it sort of. And SI is over here. I can see it better than NI, but partially. It's like it's the nature of the object itself, not isolated functions. When we're talking about cognitive functions, there are no such thing as actual cognitive functions that are inside your head or whatever, right? Instead, what we're really saying is, well, like this. What are you configured to avoid? In some regard, each human being has chosen or had chosen for them or somehow, or rolled a certain kind of character. Oh, you're a cleric. You're configured to heal people. Oh, you're a fighter. You're configured to use a sword. Well, in this case, we're talking about people who are any DOMs. Basically, whatever that decider was said, you will never surrender the frame. You will never be out of words. As long as we're still discussing it, I got a chance, right? Because I'm never going to be fooled into your. This is my hope with this configuration. It may not be 100% true, but that's what the plan is, right? To be OP, overpowerful in one way so much that at least you're not going to lose in that thing, right? Okay, so being frame lock proof then is being an any DOM. I'll always come up with some idea of how another way we might look at this. I'm not going to be locked into your frame of reference. SE DOM is missed opportunity proof. I'm never going to over hesitate. If there's a great opportunity, I'm not going to be the one who wishes later, darn, I wish I had taken that. NI, again, I'm going to be mindlessness proof. I will always notice subtle changes that turn out to be important, rather than overlooking them and maybe committing some sort of faux pas or a TE faux pas, like a wrench in the machinery. SI, unpreparedness proof. Never fool me twice. If I had that thing, if I bought that thing and I need it, I expect to be able to access it. If I learn something and I need that information, I expect to be able to recall it. If I've had a relevant experience, I expect my memory to pop it up without any bidding to remind me, oh, that thing hurts if I stab myself with it, and whatnot. TI DOM is designed to be inconsistency proof, which basically means to never affirm the wrong thing. In other words, to not be wrong. FI is regret proof. That's to never choose the wrong thing. Better to not choose anything at all than choose the wrong thing. TE is group reliance proof, to never need another person's expertise. And FE is ostracization proof, ostracizing proof. Never lose access to other people, always have access to the wealth of competency that the group provides. So here's another way to look at it. You could say INFP is configured to avoid regret by always retaining the ability to change frames. On the other hand, if I think about it like this, maybe I won't feel that good about it later. INTP configured to avoid regret by always retaining the ability to negate frames. In some sense, they're just as frame lock proof as the NE-DOM. The difference is the NE-DOM knows when not to be frame lock proof. So that's what it really means to be the expert to it, right? Whereas that NI6 slot in the INTP or INFP rejects the notion that there are appropriate times. In an ideal world, there would be plenty of times where frame lock should occur. In other words, where a singular frame should be determinate and define an issue. They want it always to be open to further analysis and engagement. So, okay, INFJ, configured to avoid mindlessness by always engaging social data receptively responsibly. Now, this is kind of important because in understanding functions, one of the issues with testing them as functions is we failure to recognize that a given party's expression of a function is defined by their first and second function. So, an NI-DOM is a knower via intuition. So they're knowing via their observations of the world. Necessarily then, their FE, because it's a tool function in service of or in conjunction with that external intuitive knowing, is going to be more receptive to cues and responsive than it is active. So you might say that an INFJ is going to be potentially less reliable about greeting everybody and remembering people's names than an ISFJ, even though they both have FE tool. INTJ, configured to avoid mindlessness by always engaging dynamic non-social systems receptively and responsively again. So in other words, they're not really going to use their TE so much as a subject, except insofar as in conjunction with its NI, it's received information about a dynamic system that allows the INTJ to go, here's how I can usefully engage with this to make it better. ENTP, configured to control the frame by always parsing for consistency. So you're never going to out-frame me because I can always frame up like an INTP, and I'm very careful about not being inconsistent. However, that will make me consistently wrong about circumstances when it's appropriate to use a regret avoidance style of parsing rather than a consistency style. ENFP, configured to control the frame by always parsing for significance. So they never parse for consistency, they always parse for significance. It's the opposite of the ENTP. Either way, it allows us to control the frame. In that regard, you can understand why Jung would call TI subjective or FI subjective, in the sense that those individual people are determined that they will figure out for themselves what is correct and not correct. What Jung didn't get right, of course, is that TI is doing that using the universal logical language, which makes it objective, whereas FI is doing it using the personal logic of significance, which makes it subjective. Okay, and now let's look at ESTP, configured to not chase non-opportunities by parsing for consistency. So, in other words, part of being good at being opportunistic is knowing when it's not worth chasing after that thing. It's too far away, I'm not going to catch it, right? And so they do that by checking to make sure they have their bullshit detector on, okay? ESFP, same thing, except parsing for significance. They've got their fun detector on, or their is this important to me detector on. ISFJ, configured to always be prepared by archiving data and physical stuff relevant to perception management and social stuff in general, which is, in part, why ISFJs put such incredibly kick-ass comments, because they've carefully structured this thing out of all their existing archived knowledge to make themselves sound like the smartest person in the comments thing about this matter. It's perfect, you know. Of course, it probably takes them a long time to craft that comment, and there's always this, there's always the tip of the iceberg game, where you throw out a couple of things, and people go, oh, that must be the tip of an iceberg, but it may just actually be the only things you know. I play that game all the time. ISTJ, configured to always be prepared by archiving data and physical stuff relevant to self-sufficiency. So, ISTJs aren't worried about basically any kind of apocalypse, be it zombie or otherwise, they figure, I'll figure it out. As long as I got all these cans of spinach in the garage anyway, so. Esfj configured to always have access to others' utility by recalling relevant specifics regarding social matters. So they will definitely remember your birthday and stuff like that, you know. Estj configured to always be self-sufficient by never repeating mistakes and by not trying to fix what works and by going with what worked last time. So, and of course, that's a damn good way to get progressively more successful over the years, because SI is a learning function and takes some time to gather the experience it needs to be applied towards TE framed problems and stuff the way that ESTJs do. Okay, so that's this video, and it wasn't that long even, so I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too TI boring. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.